You're still here, and that already tells me something about you. It tells me you believe that miracles don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they walk in quietly, barefoot, holding a dream that's heavier than they are. So before this story carries you away, remember this moment at the end, because by the time we return here, you might feel a little different. And if you do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so stories like this keep finding people who need them. The boy stood behind the stage curtain, fingers trembling as they wrapped around an old, borrowed guitar. It was too big for his thin shoulders, the strap patched with tape that had already lived many lives. He could hear the crowd on the other side, murmurs, laughter, impatience. Bright lights leaked through the cracks, painting the floor in white and gold. He closed his eyes and breathed the way his mother taught him back home, in a tiny room with peeling walls and a leaking roof. Sing like no one is watching, she used to say, even when the neighbors banged on the walls and told him to be quiet. He wasn't supposed to be here. That thought echoed louder than the audience. A poor boy from a small Filipino neighborhood, where dreams were often postponed in favor of survival. His father had been a fisherman, leaving before sunrise and sometimes returning with empty hands and tired eyes. His mother washed clothes for others, her fingers always smelling of soap and sacrifice. Music wasn't a career there, it was an escape. At night, when the electricity flickered, the boy would hum melodies he didn't fully understand, copying sounds he once heard from a cracked radio. One song, in particular, stayed with him, a strange, haunting tune about a place you could enter but never leave. He didn't know why it felt like home. When his name was called, the world narrowed into a single step forward. The judges looked powerful behind their desk, confident, untouchable. The audience waited, arms crossed, ready to be impressed or disappointed. The boy introduced himself softly, voice shaking but honest. He spoke about his family, about singing to forget hunger, about music being the one thing that made him feel less invisible. Some smiles were polite. Some eyes were skeptical. The kind of skepticism that says, "We've seen this before." The first chord rang out, slightly imperfect, but real. Then he began to sing. It wasn't loud. It wasn't showy. It was raw, weathered by nights of worry and mornings of hope. His voice carried the dust of long roads and the warmth of small victories. As the melody unfolded, something shifted. The chatter stopped. Phones lowered. Even the judges leaned in without realizing it. He wasn't just singing a famous song, he was telling his own story through it. Every note felt like a confession, every pause like a prayer. Halfway through, his eyes opened and met the crowd for the first time. He saw tears forming in places he never expected. One judge swallowed hard. Another covered their mouth, stunned. And then there was the hardest judge of all, known for sharp words and colder standards. His expression changed slowly, like a wall cracking. He wasn't judging anymore. He was listening. The boy remembered the nights he almost quit. The times classmates laughed at his worn clothes. The moments he sang quietly so his siblings could sleep. All of that poured into his voice now, steady and fearless. When the final note faded, there was a heartbeat of silence, the kind that feels sacred. Then the room exploded. The applause wasn't polite. It was thunderous. People stood, clapped, cried, shouted. The boy froze, overwhelmed, unsure if this joy was real or something that might disappear if he moved too fast. The judges spoke through tears, words tumbling out about courage, authenticity, and a voice that carried truth. And then it happened, the judge everyone feared stood up, walked forward, and without a long speech, reached for the golden button. The moment the buzzer sounded, the boy flinched in shock. Golden confetti rained down like sunlight made solid. He dropped to his knees, hands shaking, tears finally escaping. In that instant, the years of struggle didn't vanish, but they were seen. They mattered. The crowd roared, but inside the noise, there was something quieter and stronger, belief. Later, backstage, he called his mother. He could barely speak through sobs. She cried too, laughing and praying at the same time. "You sang like no one was watching," she said. And for the first time, he realized that even when the whole world watches, the truest songs are still sung from the same place. this wasn't the end of his journey. It was the beginning of a heavier dream, one filled with new challenges, expectations, and pressure. But now he knew something he hadn't known before, that his voice could open doors, soften hearts, and remind people of their own forgotten hopes. So here we are again, back where we started. You stayed. Maybe because you love music. Maybe because you love underdog stories. Or maybe because a part of you recognized that boy singing into the dark, hoping someone would listen. If this story moved you even a little, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to remember that sometimes, one song is enough to change everything. You're still watching, and that's exactly how this story wants to be told, because what happens next only matters if you stay until the end. Some moments don't knock loudly, they whisper first. And if this story touches your heart even a little, remember to like the video and subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard by the world. The boy waited alone in the hallway, the sound of his own heartbeat louder than the crowd beyond the doors. His shoes were worn thin, the kind that tell stories before their owner ever speaks. In his hands was a guitar that wasn't truly his, borrowed from a neighbor who believed in him more than he believed in himself. He was a poor Filipino boy, raised in a place where dreams were often traded for daily survival, where music was something you loved quietly because loving it too loudly felt dangerous. Tonight, though, there was no quiet left. When he stepped onto the stage, the lights blinded him for a second. The judges sat comfortably, confident, powerful people who had seen thousands of singers before him. The audience shifted, curious but cautious. He introduced himself in a soft voice, explaining how music had been his escape from hunger, from fear, from nights when hope felt too expensive. Some nodded politely. Some expected nothing special. That's how miracles usually begin, unnoticed. The first strum of Hotel California floated into the room, hesitant but honest. Then he sang. And suddenly, the song wasn't just a song anymore. His voice carried something deeper than training or technique, it carried truth. It carried the weight of a childhood shaped by sacrifice, by parents who loved him enough to let him dream even when they themselves couldn't. Each lyric felt lived in, as if the song had been waiting years just for him. The room changed. Conversations died. Smiles faded into stunned silence. One judge's eyes filled with tears. Another leaned forward, hand pressed against their chest. And the toughest judge, the one known for crushing dreams with a single sentence, stopped writing notes. He simply listened. The boy's voice cracked slightly, not from weakness, but from feeling too much, and that crack broke something open in everyone watching. As he sang the final lines, he remembered every moment he almost gave up. Every time he sang to drown out the sound of rain leaking through the roof. Every laugh from classmates who said music wouldn't feed a family. He held the last note like it was the last piece of hope he owned, then let it go. Silence. For one unbearable second, the world held its breath. Then the audience exploded. People stood up crying, clapping, shouting his name. The boy stood frozen, unsure if his legs could still hold him. The judges spoke through emotion, praising not just his voice, but his courage. And then, without warning, the judge no one expected rose from his chair, walked forward, and slammed the golden buzzer. Gold rained down like destiny finally saying yes. The boy collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed, sobbing as years of struggle poured out in a single moment. This wasn't just approval. This was validation. This was proof that pain could become power, that a voice from the margins could reach the center of the world. Backstage, shaking with disbelief, he called home. His mother cried. His father couldn't speak. In that small Filipino home, hope suddenly felt real, tangible, alive. The boy knew his journey wasn't over, this was just the beginning, but now he carried something new with him, belief. And maybe that's why you're still here. Because somewhere inside you, there's a song too. Maybe it's quiet. Maybe it's been ignored. But stories like this remind us that one brave moment, one honest voice, can change everything. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to remember that even the smallest beginnings can lead to golden endings. You made it to this moment, and that matters, because some stories only reveal their meaning at the very end. Stay with me, because what happens next isn't just about a boy on a stage, it's about anyone who ever felt unseen. And when this story reaches your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, so these moments of hope can keep traveling further than we ever imagined. The boy stood alone under the stage lights, smaller than the guitar resting against his chest, as if the instrument itself was protecting him. His palms were sweaty, his breath uneven, and his mind kept drifting back to a narrow street in the Philippines where nights were loud with rain and days were quiet with worry. He had sung there for years, on rooftops, in cramped rooms, sometimes just to drown out the sound of hunger. Music wasn't a luxury in his life, it was survival. And now, standing in front of judges who decided futures with a single word, he felt every doubt he had ever known pressed down on him at once. When he spoke, his voice was soft but steady. He talked about his family, about his parents who worked endlessly so he could dream freely, about learning songs from an old radio that crackled more than it played. The audience listened, but their faces were guarded. They had heard sad stories before. They didn't yet know this one would stay with them. The judges nodded politely, including Simon Cowell, whose expression revealed nothing at all. Then the first notes of Hotel California filled the room. It wasn't perfect. It was better than that. It was honest. His voice carried a strange mix of pain and peace, like someone who had known hardship but refused to let it harden him. Each lyric felt personal, as if the song had been written for a boy who knew what it meant to want more while expecting less. The audience leaned in without realizing it. Phones lowered. Eyes softened. Somewhere in the middle of the song, a judge wiped away tears, surprised by their own reaction. The boy's hands shook, but he didn't stop. He remembered the nights he sang quietly so his siblings could sleep, the mornings he went to school tired but hopeful, the moments people told him talent wasn't enough when you were born with nothing. He poured all of that into his voice, letting it rise and fall naturally, unafraid of sounding broken. Because broken things, he had learned, can still be beautiful. As the final note faded, silence filled the room, heavy, emotional, complete. For a second, the boy wondered if he had failed. Then the audience stood as one. Applause crashed over him like a wave. He looked toward the judges, eyes wide, trying to understand what was happening. One spoke through tears. Another praised his soul, not just his singing. And then the toughest judge stood up. Without a long speech, without drama, the golden buzzer was slammed. Gold poured from above, shimmering like a dream finally choosing him back. The boy fell to his knees, crying openly now, no longer trying to be brave. Years of struggle, doubt, and quiet perseverance released themselves in that single moment. This wasn't just a buzzer. It was proof. Proof that his voice mattered. Proof that where you come from doesn't limit how far you can go. Backstage, he called home. His mother cried so hard she couldn't speak at first. His father whispered prayers of thanks. In that small house far away, hope filled every corner. The boy knew his journey wasn't over. Fame brings new challenges, but now he carried belief with him, and belief changes everything. And maybe that's why you're still watching. Because this isn't just his story. It's a reminder that even the quietest voices can echo across the world if they're brave enough to sing. If this story touched you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it because someone out there is still waiting for their golden moment. You didn't leave. That's important, because some stories only choose people who are willing to stay until the very last second. So stay with me now, because what you're about to hear isn't just another audition story. It's the kind of moment that reminds you why you ever believed in dreams at all. And when this story reaches your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, so more real stories like this can keep finding their way to people who need them. The boy stood just off stage, staring at the floor as if it might give him permission to breathe. The guitar against his chest was scratched and old, its strings pressed into his fingers like they already knew his pain. He was a poor Filipino boy, raised in a place where survival came before ambition and where dreams were whispered, not spoken out loud. Music had never been a plan, it had been a refuge. A way to forget empty plates, long days, and the fear that tomorrow might look exactly like today. When his name was called, his heart nearly stopped. The lights hit him like a wall as he stepped onto the stage. The judges sat calmly behind their desk, faces unreadable, professionals who had seen thousands of hopefuls walk in believing they were special. The audience watched politely, curious but cautious. He introduced himself quietly, explaining how he sang at night to escape reality, how his parents worked endlessly just to keep the family together. It was a familiar story to some, but no one knew yet how deeply this one would cut. Then he strummed the first chord of Hotel California. From the first line, something felt different. His voice wasn't loud, but it was heavy, with experience, with longing, with truth. It carried the weight of someone who had lived more than his years suggested. Every lyric sounded like it came from somewhere deep inside him, as if the song was no longer about a hotel, but about a life you're born into and struggle to escape. The room grew quiet, the kind of quiet that feels fragile, like no one wants to disturb it. The boy closed his eyes as he sang, remembering nights when rain leaked through the roof and mornings when hope felt like a risk. He remembered people who told him music was useless, that talent didn't matter if you were poor. His voice trembled, not from fear, but from honesty, and that small crack broke something open in the room. One judge wiped away tears. Another stared at him in disbelief. And Simon Cowell, known for being impossible to impress, stopped everything and simply listened. As the song built, so did the emotion. The boy's hands shook, but he never lost control. He sang like someone who had nothing left to protect, like someone who knew this moment might be his only chance. When the final note faded, silence wrapped around the stage. For a single heartbeat, no one moved. The boy stood there, unsure if he had done enough, unsure if his truth had landed. Then the applause erupted. People stood. Some cried openly. The judges spoke with voices thick with emotion, praising not just his singing, but his courage, his soul, his story. And then, in a moment no one expected, the toughest judge stood up and walked forward. Without hesitation, the golden buzzer was smashed. Gold fell from above like the universe finally answering him back. The boy dropped to his knees, sobbing as years of struggle poured out all at once. This wasn't just a win. This was recognition. This was proof that pain could be transformed into power, that a voice born in hardship could move the world. Backstage, he called his parents, barely able to speak through tears. In a small Filipino home far away, disbelief turned into joy, and joy turned into hope. His journey wasn't over, if anything, it was just beginning. New challenges waited ahead. But now he carried something he never had before, belief. Belief that his voice mattered. Belief that where you start doesn't decide where you end. And maybe that's why you're still watching. Because somewhere inside you, there's a quiet dream waiting for its moment. If this story moved you even a little, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it because sometimes, one song is all it takes to change everything.